Welcome once again to The Doctor is In. I am Dr. Freddie Gomez. Please join me over the next 30 minutes as we try to answer your questions about COVID-19. But before all that, a team of researchers in Finland came up with a simulated video that shows how viruses like COVID-19 can potentially spread easily, especially indoors when someone coughs or sneezes. So here it is right now. So what you see is a 3D computer-generated model of a grocery store with aisles. And as you can see, the neon green cloud represents aerosol particles coming from a person who coughed or sneezed. But look at how potential viruses or bacteria can spread from one aisle to another. It's also a nice reminder for people who are not well to stay at home and maintain physical distance. And for everyone else, social distancing helps to avoid getting sick. So joining us live via Skype is one of the researchers behind this video. He is Assistant Professor Ville Vuorinen from Aalto University. Welcome to the show, Professor Ville.
Thanks for inviting me.
It's great for you to be here. Now, Professor Ville, can you tell us the significance of the video we just showed, and how is this important to the public's health and safety?
Yes, first of all, it's a physics-based modeling simulation study. It was carried out by Finnish Meteorological Institute, and as a disclaimer, it's work in progress presently. What it means to the public, I think that it illustrates, indeed, as you said very nicely, summarizing it, that the reason why we need social distancing. It illustrates the reason why we should keep the distance, and in that way, I think that it does strengthen the message that we have already heard so far. Stay at least a few meters away from other persons, and this kind of nicely shows that this is indeed how viruses are transmitted in air.
Now, I understand your research entails the use of very sophisticated computers that are used in industrial grade applications, fluid dynamics, aerospace, and it's a very high-tech computer. So the accuracy of this model is very close to real-world applications. Now, with your model, do we know more or less how long the airborne particles can remain in the air?
Yes, indeed, this is a physics-based model. It's a supercomputer model, and it represents some state-of-the-art modeling in the field of fluid mechanics. And how long they can stay in air, it has two sides. So this is a multidisciplinary problem, the virus transmission. We have, on one hand, the physics side, where we have the air is flowing and the particles are moving, and on the other hand, we have the virological side of this problem. So it's a multidisciplinary problem, and to interpret these problems, we do need multidisciplinary collaboration, and that's also what we have inside our consortium. If you ask me how long, I would say that it depends again on two sides. So on the physics side, these kind of small aerosols, let's say below 30 micrometers, they can stay there for minutes. They can linger minutes in the air, just the aerosol particle, talking about physics. If I'm talking about the virological side, the question is how long the virus stays viral. So every single aerosol particle is not necessarily infected. So in that sense, some studies have shown that these viruses, these particular viruses, could survive even 3 hours in certain conditions. But is that the situation in practice? So laboratory and practice, what's the correspondence between these? So presently, we don't know completely, but Now we are focusing in our studies on a time scale of a few minute time scale, and studying this hypothesis of aerosol transmission.
Now, we hear this a lot, Professor Ville, especially here in the Philippines, of how all of these measures are meant to flatten the curve, to sort of help alleviate the load on hospitals. How can your video help flatten that curve?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of talk about the flattening the curve, and first of all, I mean, there could be many ways how to achieve this. Of course, if we think about environment like supermarket and or any other public place, we have plenty of people coming to these places. So we know from social networks that this is how diseases spread very efficiently in this kind of hubs where a lot of people gather together in tight spaces, especially indoors. And if we think about, from our simulations, you cannot draw direct conclusions to COVID-19. But if I'm talking about physics-wise and just about aerosols in air that come from breathing, breathing can be surprisingly important here as well, or coughing or sneezing, for example. We would probably want to reduce the amount of aerosol in the air. So how much we actually release aerosol into air. So in that sense, if I'm thinking about our simulations in the flattening the curve context, we would, for example, reduce traffic in these kind of public places like supermarkets. We would have less people there for a smaller amount of time. And in that sense, if you would go there even as seldom as possible, we would probably be able to, even with this kind of simple steps, to reduce the number of aerosol in the air, possibly also viral aerosol.
I think your video and your physics model of the aerosol particles is very timely, and the use of a grocery store as your model is very practical and timely as well, because that is one of the few places here in the Philippines where people are allowed to go. So a lot of the social distancing and the home quarantine sort of enforces people to stay at home, but a grocery store is another place where they can actually leave their home for vital needs. Now, my question is, do you think with your physics model that we could sort of formulate a good way for certain establishments like a grocery store? Can you think of ways in which to better the safety of people? Should there be like a higher ceiling, better ventilation? Should people sell their goods in the grocery outdoors where there's better ventilation? What do you think, Professor Ville?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I think that what we studied was, and what we have found in our preliminary findings so far, is that when this model person is coughing in a supermarket, it takes a few minutes at least for this droplet cloud to dilute in air. So basically, the dilution, we can affect that. We can affect dilution by ventilation, let's say opening the window. There could be various ways that we could think about how to like to enhance the dilution rate of this cloud, to have smaller concentrations of aerosol in the air. But yeah, you're right. It's the same story here. Supermarket is one of the only environments where you still gather plenty of people together. It's pretty challenging to close supermarkets, and I'm not saying that, but probably there are simple ways that one can kind of influence the reduce the aerosol in air in supermarkets.
So would you suggest that still people should, do you suggest people to continue practicing social distancing? Social distancing of 1 meter is what is in our guidelines here in the Philippines. With your model, do you think that social distancing should be probably twice that distance, probably at least 2 meters from one person to another?
Yeah, indeed. Based on our simulations, we cannot say any definitive distance. I think that social distancing is a practical measure that stay at a certain distance from other persons. Don't go close to other persons. And every single country, the authorities give their own measures for this distance. And what our simulations indicate is that it's kind of like not new news. If we have aerosol transmission, this is essentially like a cigarette smoke problem. So you know that if somebody is smoking a cigarette, you can at certain weather conditions, depending on the weather conditions or ventilation conditions, you can smell it far apart, even tens of meters apart. So in the same way, the aerosols are traveling in air. And what we saw in this simulation was a situation where the person is coughing and these aerosols are traveling, and they are even going to the opposite aisle next to the one where the cough actually happened. So in that sense, it also illustrates that the aerosols or small droplets, they can travel a very long distance and even go over the wall. And this is something that we have to think about. What is the good measure of distance? But as far as possible, stay as far away from other persons as possible. I think that's the main learning outcome from this watching this video.
That's good advice, Professor Ville. Stay away from people as far as possible. And thank you, Professor Ville Vuorinen of Aalto University, for sharing your time and expertise with us.
Okay, thank you for inviting me and having me here. Thank you. Nice seeing you.
And when we return, let's talk about strengthening community response on COVID-19 with Dr. Jaifred Christian Lopez from the Philippine Society of Public Health Physicians. And also, please start sending your questions via the CNN Philippines Facebook page. Please stay tuned. And you're still watching The Doctor is In. And you're still with me. I'm Dr. Freddie Gomez. So kanina may nakuha tayong interview with Dr. Ville Vuorinen. Isa-summarize ko lang mabilis para sa mga kababayan natin. Ang sinabi ni Professor na isang researcher from Finland na ang paghinga, pagsalita can release aerosols. So we need to reduce aerosolization by keeping away from places, crowded places. So, iwas po tayo sa mga lugar na maraming tao at siksikan. So, crowded public places such as supermarkets. Sinabi rin ni Professor Ville na to put emphasis on social distancing and to stay home. So, napaka-importante yung social distancing at pagmanatili sa bahay, at ang aerosolized particles can linger sa hangin. So nananatili siya sa hangin for minutes and up to 3 hours daw sa mga ospital, up to 3 hours. So itong mga dapat natin alam para makaiwas sa pag-spread natin ng COVID-19. So continuing on with the show, please send your questions via CNN Philippines official Facebook page, and later on the program, we will answer these questions as well, as quickly and as thoroughly as we can. So during the Holy Week break, the Department of Health released new COVID-19 cases. So as ang kanilang bagong classification, so ang PUI, PUM, hindi na po yun ginagamit, luma na po yun. Ang mga bagong classifications natin ay suspect. Ito ang tawag kung ikaw ay may sintomas ng COVID-19 katulad ng dry cough, lagnat, at may travel history sa lugar na may confirmed local transmission sa COVID-19. So ito na rin yung mga taong may exposure sa taong naging positive. So ang suspect, may sintomas kayo, nanggaling kayo sa isang lugar na hotspot na pwedeng maraming merong COVID-19, kayo ay suspect. Ang next classification ay ang probable case. Ito naman ay kung ikaw ay naghihintay ng opisyal na result ng COVID-19 test mula sa isang DOH-certified laboratory testing facility. So ang probable case ay isang taong nakakuha na ng test pero hindi pa alam yung resulta. At ang huling classification ay ang confirmed case. Ito naman ay kapag ikaw ay positibo na, alam na positibo na sa COVID-19. So yun ang ating mga classifications: suspect, probable case, at confirmed case. So as we all know, the enhanced community quarantine has been extended until April 30. So ang pagkakataon din ito ng bawat local government unit kasama na ang mga barangay na mas palakasin pa ang mga pagpapatupad ng quarantine laban sa COVID-19. And to talk more about the importance of strengthening community response to COVID-19, we have on the program right now Dr. Jaifred Christian Lopez. Siya ay isang board member of the Philippine Society of Public Health Physicians. Welcome to the show, Dr. Lopez.
Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat at sa mga tagapanood po sa atin.
Ngayon, simula nang nagkaroon ng community quarantine noong March, nakita natin ang mga frontliner, hindi lang sa mga ospital, kundi pati na sa mga komunidad, kasama dyan ang mga barangay health workers. So what is the role of the community health responders dito sa paglaban natin ng COVID-19?
Opo, kasi nakita po natin na ang ating pong mga health facilities, limitado lang po yung kapasidad po nilang makatanggap po ng mga pasyente, na makamanage po ng mga pasyente po natin. So andun po yung kahalagahan po na nape-prevent po natin ng first line, yung pong ating pong una po, yung pagkalat po ng ating COVID-19. Pangalawa po, na dapat po nakokontrol din po natin na hindi po nakakapasok or nalilimitahan po ang pakikisalamuha po sa between po yung mga pasyente po nating may kumpirmadong COVID at saka sa mga wala po. So kumbaga parang andun po yung pangangailangan na dapat po sa pinaka-basic po na unit po ng ating pamahalaan, yun po yung mga barangay po natin, ay magkakaroon po ng kakayanan na matukoy po kung ano po yung mga households na may higher risk. At kumbaga, dun din po yung parang magiging level of control natin na dapat po meron po tayong ma-implement na physical distancing. So kumbaga, dun po sa aspetong pong yun, malaki po yung papel na magagawa po ng mga barangay para po talaga po nating mapababa po yung mga posibleng kaso po na mangyari po ng COVID-19. And eventually po, it will redound to being able to limit the number of those that end up in the hospitals.
So, kasama ba ito yung importanteng role din yung mga doktor na nasa barrios, na yung mga nasa malayong lugar, na nagmo-monitor at nag-prevent din ng mga possible cases ng COVID-19?
Opo, sa katunayan po, ang mga doctors to the barrios po, kasi po ako din po isang faculty po sa UP College of Public Health, at ang isa sa mga papel po na ginagampanan po namin ay bigyan po sila ng mga konsepto ng pagmamonitor po ng epidemiology ng mga yung pong pagkalat po ng mga sakit po. Na kumbaga, ito po ay isang malaking responsibilidad din po sa kanila dahil po karamihan po sa mga doctors to the barrios po ay direktang namamahala po or nangangasiwa ng ating mga rural health units. At kasama po sa responsibilidad na po na yun ay namamonitor po araw-araw kung ano po ang kalagayan po ng mga bayan na kinasasakupan po nila. So kagaya po kanina po, bago po tayo pumunta dito sa panayam na to, may mga nakausap po ako mga DTTB at saka mga nurse na sinasabi nila sa akin na andun po yung kahalagahan na araw-araw po, alam po nila kung anong sitwasyon, alam po nila na halimbawa ilan po yung mga suspect, ilan po ang mga probable case, at andun din po yung yung kahalagahan na paano po ba natin makukumpirma na ang isang probable case ay talagang confirmed. So actually po may mga nabanggit pa po sa akin mga mga problema po ng halimbawa, lalo na sa mga nasa medyo malalayong mga lugar po natin, paano po natin sila matetest sa isang accredited testing facility. So halimbawa po may mga nakausap ako from Mindanao halimbawa na kung saan may isa akong colleague po doon na ang kanyang LGU ay 3 hours away from the nearest accredited testing facility. So parang andun po yung parang babalansehin mo siya na how can you maintain physical distancing while at the same time also ensuring that the patient gets tested. So parang andun po yung mga considerations po na paano po ba natin mapapanatili ang physical distancing pero we still have to test the patient. And kaya po andun po yung parang kahalagahan na how can we actually allow our guidelines and policies to be applicable to the RHUs, to the barangay level. Yun po. Tapos ang isa din po dyan ay yung pong kakayanan po ng ating mga barangay health workers to be able to do contact tracing and to also be protected. Kasi right now po parang syempre po magbabahay-bahay po yan, aalamin po nila ano po ba yung mga households po na medyo at risk. So they have to be able to go around. And of course, they have to protect themselves because at every single household, you will never know if there will be a heightened risk in any of those households. So kaya po andun po yung ating kalagahan na dapat po pinoprotektahan po natin. Importante po ang mga nasa ospital pero importante din po ang mga nasa barangay at saka mga nasa mga LGUs.
Ako, napaka-importante talaga ng mga trabaho nila and it's very difficult with what they're doing. So my hats off talaga for the doctors sa mga barrios. Ano? Now, Dr. Lopez, before we continue the conversation, we have viewers from Riyadh, the UAE, Cyprus, Riyadh, Russia, France, and Singapore. Hello to all of you and thank you for watching The Doctor Is In. I am here with Dr. Jaifred Christian Lopez. And we're back to The Doctor Is In. I'm Dr. Freddie Gomez. We had a slight technical difficulty there, but we're back with Dr. Jaifred Christian Lopez, who is a board member of the Philippine Society of Public Health Physicians. Dr. Lopez, you mentioned earlier, no, dun sa sagot nyo na meron kayong mga guidelines na you're trying to make sure na maganda ang pag-implement nito. Could you tell us more about these unified guidelines on managing COVID-19?
Yes, Doc. Actually, meron pong mga guidelines po na nirelease po ang Philippine Society of Public Health Physicians in conjunction po with the Philippine College of Physicians, with the Philippine Society for Microbiology and Infectious Diseases, at ang ating Philippine Society of General and Internal Medicine, with of course with coordination and partnership with the Department of Health. So, ang mga guidelines po na ito ay may kinalaman po sa kung paano po natin mapapababa po ang risk na kumalat ang COVID-19 in the following settings: in the primary care setting, as well as also giving guidelines for the hospital setting at kung ano po yung mga angkop na PPE na gagamitin po sa bawat pagkakataon, sa bawat scenario po na ma-encounter po natin ng isang suspect, probable, or confirmed case. So medyo detalyado po siya, pero ang mga sinasabi pong mga prinsipyo po na nakapaloob po sa mga guidelines na yun ay una, we have to be very conscious of physical distancing. Given that we have a virus na medyo kagaya po ng naibahagi kanina na talaga pong ano po siya talaga, very virulent, very contagious. So talagang kailangan po nating mapanatili ang physical distancing sa bawat pagkakataon. Andun din po yung kahalagahan na dapat po ang PPEs po natin ay nakasuot ko po kapag meron po tayong pasyente na direktang binibigyan ng care. Like dapat po meron po tayong face shield, for the eye protection. We also have at least a 3-ply surgical mask. We also have a gown and gloves. So those are the bare minimum po na full PPE na nire-recommenda po natin at the level of the community. Because of course yung pong ating mga full PPEs that would be given to the highest level of health facilities, yung pong ating mga referral hospitals, that will warrant a more higher level of PPE. But for the community po, basic na po sa atin na meron po tayong eye protection, airway protection, meron po tayong gown at meron po tayong gloves. So andun din po yung ating kalagahan na paano po natin mapapanatili ang mga routine po natin na healthcare services. Like for example po, hindi pa rin po mawawala sa mga RHUs ang kahalagahan po ng maternal and child health. Yung pong, of course, marami po sa mga RHUs po natin ay karamihan po dyan ay mga birthing facilities. Andun din po yung kahalagahan na dapat po binibigyan po natin ng kaukulang pag-physical distancing po ang ating mother at ang kanyang infant kapag po meron po tayong confirmed or probable case. So, pero at the same time, we also want to maintain na meron po tayong breastfeeding. So may mga ganun pong importanteng mga considerations na nakapaloob po sa ating unified guidelines na sana po sa lahat po ng mga nasa RHU at saka sa mga health center, magkaroon po tayo ng pagkakataong mabasa po ang mga ito para po maisagawa po sila ng maayos.
Now, let's answer some social media questions. Dr. Lopez, if you could join me.
Yes,
we have a question from Yara online. Ayan, nawala ang question ni Yara, pero we'll have that back. So we'll answer that online na lang. So, quick last question. Kapag ang isang tao ay suspected ng COVID-19, Dr. Lopez, at malayo sa regional hospital, maaari ba siyang dalhin sa rural health unit? Is this possible?
Posible po siya, pero kailangan po muna natin i-assess yung kung ano po ang kanyang kalagayan. Kapag halimbawa po, malala po in the sense na talaga pong persistent po ang fever, nahirapan po talagang huminga at talaga pong nangangailangan na po ng atensyon ng isang ospital, maganda po sana na ma-refer po siya sa RHU na ang mangyayari po ay meron na pong nakahandang vehicle or anything that would transport the patient to the nearest referral hospital. So parang andun pa rin po yung pangangailangan na ang RHU po ay may kakayanan na madala po ang mga pasyenteng malala ang kalagayan sa ospital. Yun po ang isang consideration. Pero kapag po halimbawa ang ating pong pasyente po ay maaari naman pong ma-monitor po sa bahay, yun po yung pinaka-ideal case na sana po hindi na po talaga magsistay sa RHU. Kasi po, ang RHU naman po ay isang, kumbaga parang station po siya na kung saan magkakaroon po tayo ng kakayanan na mag-ipon ng mga datos po doon, na kumbaga parang magsaserve din po siyang clinic, ganyan po. So parang ang RHU po ay isa pong lugar na kung saan maganda po tayong mag-refer po kapag medyo hindi po natin alam yung kung ano yung kalagayan talaga ng pasyente. Ayun po. So, yun po yung isang function ng RHU. So, kapag po malala ang pasyente, maganda po na ang RHU ay handa na dalhin po siya sa ospital. So, ganun pa rin po siya.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Jaifred Christian Lopez, for sharing your time and knowledge regarding the current situation. And thank you for sending in those questions. Sorry, nagkaroon ng technical difficulty, di namin sagot. But we will continue to answer your questions. I will see you again tomorrow at 3:30 p.m. I'm Dr. Freddie Gomez. Please stay safe.